Hello, 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 hello. I was looking for some. What was I looking for? I was looking for some warm up videos. I don't really have any for religious type of talk tonight, so we'll just kind of dive into it. I cannot imagine this is going to be a long stream unless people want to get in here and be cathartic and talk about their past experiences with religion and things like that. Um, so so But anyway, make sure that you say hello so I can greet you. Hello to the six personas who are watching right now, and everyone else is going to watch in the future. So tonight's show is going to be about the Marvin Sapp situation here. And I gotta say, a lot of times I watch stuff online or whatever. I hear about something, and I really don't think it's a big deal. I really don't think it's a big deal. I just keep pushing. And then sooner or later, I'll see somebody else say, "Oh man, it starts blowing up on the internet, and columns are being written about it, and all this kind of stuff." So I don't know. I just don't see what the deal is, and that's kind of what I thought about the Marvin Sapp situation. He's like, "Oh, okay, we'll close the doors," but everybody was saying that he said lock the doors and all this type of stuff. So it wasn't a big deal to me, but we'll see how it goes. So tonight I'm not going to talk about my personal reflections on religion or my belief or I don't want to get into any of that type of stuff, right? I don't want to get into any of that type of stuff. I am going to talk about my own past church history. I will talk about that a little bit, but I don't want to dig into what I think or believe now because everybody has their own thoughts and desires and beliefs and all that kind of stuff. I Fire Small from Trinidad. Okay. Trinidad is on my list of places that I want to visit to look for a place to live. So I am certainly interested in hitting up there. Some new faces in here tonight. So thank you so much, Fire. Thank you so much to D Will Motor Piper. D Will Motor Piper. I'm trying to see if that means anything. All right, from Clarksville, Tennessee, checking in. Thank you so much. And Wanda, hello to you. Thank you so much for checking in. And again, thank you so much for everyone else who's going to check in. So usually what I do is I play some warm-up videos before we get into the main thing for tonight. I'm not going to do that today because I don't have any more warm-up videos. So we're going to jump straight into it. And then I'm going to talk about my own personal history. And if you all want to chime in through the chat, I may actually open it up if anybody wants to come up and talk about their own experiences with the church. And this is mostly going to be a Black church kind of show, right? A Black church kind of show. So I'm certainly interested to hear you all talk about any experiences that you've had with the Black church, in particular with offerings or you scandals, or you've been in church and somebody's wig fell off or whatever. I'm certainly up for it. So we can talk about that kind of stuff. Hello to you, Judy Newman. Hello from Florida, Stacy Dillard Pagan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for checking in and all that. All right. So, as we all may know, or I would assume you guys tuned in, that there has been a controversy surrounding Marvin Sapp, who is a gospel singer slash preacher. And so he did something the other day. Actually, this was like last year. And the clip just went viral for whatever reason. Right now. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit. Hello to you from Claremont. I don't know where Claremont is. Forgive me. Where's Claremont? I don't know where that is. The David J. Chronicles. Hello to you. So we're going to check out the full video. This is like a 4-minute long video. I got this from somebody else. So I'm assuming this is the same one we're watching. So here we go. We're going to play this video and we'll get to it here.
For me for a quick moment. I want everybody to remain standing quickly.
Beat it up
How many of y'all really received something from the word of the Lord tonight? Listen, when you study scripture, you will notice that whenever God did something in the lives of the patriarchs of old, the patriarchs would pause, they would set up an altar, and they would offer a sacrifice. I asked each and every one of you, how many of y'all received something from the word of the Lord? Everyone in this place said these words, I did. Because of your acknowledgement of what God did in word, there is an obligation that is attached to that acknowledgement. In biblical days,
All right, I wasn't going to do this, but let me break this up here. What he's done is, and I don't know, and I really don't know if this has been acknowledged in psychology as far as, Black church psychology. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. I'm looking into this, so there's some things I got to read about this. I don't know, but what he's doing is a type of uh, in manipulation, I would say, to say that God did something for you, now you owe something to the preacher. Um, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily and always a negative, but there's certainly amount of manipulation that's going on here when certain types of people do this, because they get you all hyped up. And I'm listen, I let me back up for a second here. I can say all this because I used to be a minister. I was a minister in a Church of God in Christ. I had it ordained. I had an ordination paper, card, all that kind of stuff. I had all that. I did all that. So I understand. So I understand a little bit of it. And we used to have conversations about this type of thing. Exactly when to take an offering, the words and phrases you should use, and things along those lines. So that's exactly what he's doing right now. So you can see at the bottom here, it says 2024 PAW, that's Pentecostal Assembly of the World. It's an organization just like the Church of God in Christ is a incorporated organization and all that. So this is, I assume, their national convention, which is in Baltimore. Kojix was, for years, it was in Memphis, Tennessee, and then they switched to other places, St. Louis and a couple other places. Now I think they're back to having it in Memphis, Tennessee. Other thing, there's a lot more to it than that. So I'm just pointing out why is he kind of talking like this? What he's doing is playing on the emotions and the heartstrings of the people in order for them to give this particular amount of offering. So we'll keep playing from here.
they offered livestock, grain. In word, there is an obligation that is attached to that acknowledgement. In biblical days, they offered livestock, grain. That was a type of currency. Note, if you will, I did not say money.
Okay, I talked about this before. What he's actually saying is incorrect, and anyone who's read anything from the Bible or understands anything about the quote unquote biblical times is absolutely incorrect. I thought about doing a lesson on tithes and offerings from the Bible. What he's saying is just absolutely incorrect. They weren't back there trading sheep and livestock. They weren't. Now, sometimes they were, but the vast majority of the time they weren't. If you read the Bible, Deuteronomy, Exodus, Leviticus, it talks about denarii, and all these other forms of giving silver coins. Don't pay your servants. You don't withhold your servants' pay. Pay them at the end of the day. All this is in the Bible, and we're talking about silver coins and copper coins and all these other things. So I don't know why they continue to say this, but it's incorrect. I guarantee you that nobody who's gone to seminary who has any understanding, and you don't even have to go to seminary, you can just read the books. It's in there where they talk about this. In fact, I believe it's in Numbers or Deuteronomy, where it talks about if you have tithes, where the book of Deuteronomy is I can't remember if it's Deuteronomy or Numbers. One of those two books talks about when you get into the promised land, right? The Jewish people were going to go to the promised land, and God was going to set up a place where his temple was going to be. And in the book, it says, if the place where God sets up his temple is too far away and you can't bring the tithes, then you are to sell them and get the money, then go to the place where God has the set up his temple, and then you take that money that you sold your sheep and oxen and your fruits and vegetables before, take the money, bring it to that place. That way you don't have to carry it all and feed your sheep and oxen and all that along the way. Buy it once you get there, buy new sheep, buy new oxen with the money, and then you give the sacrifice or whatever to the Lord. That's what it says in the book. So why he's saying this, I don't know. I don't know why. So if any of you go to a church, if any of you all church goers and they're telling you this, it's wrong. It's absolutely 100% wrong. So, all right, here we go. Let me rewind a little bit. I'm not even looking at the screen here. We got any hellos in here? Let's see. Okay, here we go. A couple more people joined in. Let's see. Hello to you, Florida, Claremont. Hello to you, Sassy Red, near Rancho Cucamonga in southwestern California. Okay. Thank you so much. Checking in from Southern Cal, SoCal. I hope this man didn't twerk in church. I hope this man didn't twerk in church. This is spiritual bullyism. Yeah, true. Rhonda, hello to you. Good evening. Good evening. I disagree with this. I am currently reading my Bible objectively from Genesis to Revelation. For me, at least once a year, I've read where many prophets refuse offerings, Naaman and Elisha. Okay. There's a difference between offerings and tithes and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, but um, so a lot of times the offerings could have been pigeons and doves and stuff. But what he's saying right here, if your comment is towards what I'm addressing right here, it was the he's talking about currency and being paid in one another. You didn't pay each other. If you did a hard day labor for me working in my fields, my offering, my pay to you was not a pigeon. It was not a dove. It was gold or silver, coins or denarii or whatever. That's what it was. So, why this is to quote Yoli. Hello to you. It's spiritual bullyism. It's nonsense, and it's not correct. To be honest, lots of money can bring lots of corruption. True. Guyana in the house. Hello to you, Yoli. Just because a man is well versed in the word doesn't mean he's practicing. Well, the problem is a lot of people are well versed and they're just not being honest. That's the problem. Okay, so we'll continue on with this brother is saying.
I said currency. They offered livestock, grain.
I want you all to hear this. Grain.
Word. Because of your acknowledgement of what God did in word, there is an obligation that is attached to that acknowledgement. In biblical days, they offered livestock, grain. That was a type of currency. Note, if you will, I did not say money. I said currency. And this is what God is saying for at least 1,000 of you in the building. And this is simple. I'm not going to challenge you the way Bishop did. But I know that there's 1,000 individuals under the sound of my voice that can do what I'm about to challenge you all to do. This is simple. 1,000 people giving what I'm about to challenge will be $20,000. 1,000 people giving what I'm about to challenge you all to do will be $20,000. Now, for those of us who are on the dais, I'm taking you higher, so put it back. I'm a strong believer that leaders.
If everybody's about to do what I'm challenge you to do, 1,000 people will give it $20,000. So you need 20 people to give $1,000. Is that what he's saying? I'm trying to understand this in context here.
I'm a strong believer that leaders lead, not only in. I'm a strong believer that leaders lead 1,000 people giving what I'm about to challenge you all to do. This is simple. 1,000 people giving what I'm about to challenge will be $20,000.
1,000 people. Is he saying this right? 1,000 people. If 1,000 people give $1,000, is that $100,000? Is that $100,000? 1,000 people giving $1,000. Is that $100,000? Am I bugging here? I got to do this math here. Math is not my strong suit. 1,000 people. 1,000 people times $1,000 is $1 million. What is this man talking about?
1,000 people giving what I'm about to challenge you all to do will be $20,000. Now, for those of us who are on the dais, I'm taking you higher, so put it back. I'm a strong believer that leaders lead not only in time, not only in talent, but also in treasure. Leaders lead in time, talent, and treasure. I was taught a long time ago that it costs to sit up here. There's 1,000 of you. I said, close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors. Close the doors. We all gonna lead together.
You're stupid,
Y'all ain't going to place, but to the restaurant. There's 1,000 of you tonight, and place, but to the close the doors. We all gonna lead together. Close that it costs to sit up here. There's 1,000 of you. I said, close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors. Close the doors. We all gonna lead together. Y'all ain't going no place but to the restaurant. There's 1,000 of you tonight, and those that are watching, It's 1,000 that's watching online. This is a small seed. If I get 1,000 online to give this, if I get 1,000 in the sanctuary to give this, that's $40,000 tonight. Now, everyone up here, we've all sold and seeded, but I need everyone standing up here with us, with me, to plant a seed of $100. Because again, it costs to sit up here. Y'all start moving. Y'all can bring it right now. Come. Even if you're giving tangibly, just put your hand on take your phone and stick it on the bucket. Shh. Giving is worship. Giving is worship. 1,000 people online. You give $20. This is easy, saints. This is an easy miracle. We should be able to raise $40,000 tonight just from y'all giving. I'm about to go get in my truck. I'm going to my hotel. I got me some fruit. I'm doing fruit now. Fruit and water. I'm trying to look at us. Yeah. Now after you come up here, you can open the doors. Y'all walk out the door after you come up here. But make sure you come this way before you go out the door. That's it. Look at God. Look at what God has done. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm good. I'm out.
Okay, so that's that. Thank you for the correction there. Thank you for the correction. He wanted everyone to give $20. Where's that at? Okay, he wanted everyone, and hello, thank you so much, Tim Psych Advice. He wanted $20 and to give $20. Okay, so I stand corrected on that. That's why you got to watch stuff and recognize. Notice he didn't say lock the doors and all this kind of other stuff, right? That Umar Johnson, what you got in your pocket energy. Y'all leave Umar alone. Umar's going through a lot right now. This brother, his child is acting up and he's getting online, and y'all leave Umar alone. Now he wants everyone to give $20,000. Okay. All right. 1,000 people online and 1,000 people in the church give $20. Okay. Got you. Yep. I got you. Yep. Thank you for that. I didn't watch this clip before, so I didn't know what he was asking. Let's see. Yes, that is peer pressure and bullying. He's holding them hostage now. Greetings, man. That's wild. Wow. Spiritual begging. That is spiritual begging. Let me tell you something. I didn't even know this was an issue. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ. I didn't even know this was an issue. I would have thought this was a regular Sunday. This happened all the time, particularly at big events, convocations like this brother is doing, happen all the time. Close the doors. Nobody say a word. Don't talk while we're giving offerings because it's worship. Nothing he said here was foreign to me. I haven't been to church in a while. I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but nothing he said here was foreign to me. So I don't get it. I don't get it. Someone said he never would have paid it. Right? What is this saying? Jesus paid it all, but he didn't pay. He didn't pay in the lights or something like that, right? All right. So he's going to a hotel, and some of the members are probably fighting on the eviction notice. Listen, that was always the thing. And they, he said you ain't going nowhere but to the restaurant. It was that type of guilty type of manipulation tactics that we heard all the time. Now, my mother was a single mother, worked, basic 9-to-5 job, raising two boys, lived, very, very meagerly, to say the least. A few times we struggled, right? And my mother would, be one in the audience, unfortunately, that would give this type of stuff, these type of offerings. And then we drive by the restaurants on the way home and see the preachers' cars in the very restaurants that we could no longer go to get us something to eat after we've been sitting in church services for 3, 4, and 5 hours. And I mean that literally, right? We get to church at 8 o'clock and not leave until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, literally, right? So just shouting and dancing and stuff all night. So this is my culture. I understand exactly what he was saying, and I understand exactly what he was doing. And so, it is what it is. But I didn't see anything that was abnormal. I guess it's abnormal to the new world or what's going on, maybe because people aren't going to church that much anymore. I don't know. But what he did that night was not abnormal to me. What is the money being raised for? Publicly embarrassing people to give is abuse, and it's always been nothing new under the sun, and it's still wrong all day long. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit here. If listen, they got to pay for these conventions. You think you're having a big convention, right? It probably cost, it probably costs $10,000 to $20,000 to rent out these big venues for the night. You got to pay the preachers. You got to pay people to just the cost of the place, right? You got to rent, hotel rooms for all your speakers, because they're not coming in to speak for free. If you got a week-long event, you got speakers coming in for every, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, right? That week long, and they have a high day and Sunday. You got to pay those people, right? Their honorariums. minimum. It's got to be $1,000, 500 or $1,000 minimum, right? Then if you have presentations during the day, a lot of times they have daytime workshops. You got to pay those people, right? Their honorariums got to be the same thing. I'm coming to give this seminar about praise and worship, or how to become a better pastor, or whatever they're doing seminars on. You got to pay those people, right? So those are costs to it. You got to shuffle these people around town. They don't come into town for free. I'm preaching on a Monday night. I'm going to be here all week. You got to pay my hotel room for all week, or at least that night I got to preach. So these are all different types of costs that are going into it, right? And of course, no business, I don't care what businesses it is just going to run it just for free, right? There's marketing that go along with it. You got to pay for flyers you put up, websites you put together. You got to pay the people to do it. All these are all different types of costs. Let's see. He's getting in his truck. Some may not even have transportation. Yeah, I've been in sanctuaries where this has happened. I didn't give a dime. It should be criminal. I would have walked right up to there with my family. Would have wished someone to challenge me. Please hit the like. Yes, please hit the like button, y'all. Lakeisha, what was the cost for the conference I participated for up front? Yeah, so when you're paying up front, you're getting a package, you're paying a register, and of course, like I started to say, the organization wants to get paid too. So it's not just going to break even. So they want to make some money off of this whole thing. So you got to pay the preachers, the honorariums, the preachers got to be taken out to dinner. You got to pay all that type of stuff, right? Then of course the biggest expense is the event center in and of itself. So you got to pay for that, right? So if you're renting out, let's just say Madison Square Garden for the week, listen, that's going to be some money. That's going to be some money. So there's no scripture in the Bible where Jesus charged $1,000 for a sermon. That's true. However, that's true. I mean, but he did take up offerings. That kind of talk would make me not want to donate anything. Okay, so those are the different types of expenses. Now I went to we're gonna put this up on the screen here. So that's that video here. We'll stop sharing that. And I didn't mean to close it out, but so we will go to let's see, present, share screen. All right, so this is an article we're going to read through. This is from the Roy's report, reporting the truth, restoring the church. So this is obviously going to be on their side and in their corner, right? Ushers, close the door. Pastor Marvin Sapp's offering call ignites Black church giving debate. Deluged by online debates, gospel singer and pastor Marvin Sapp defended his fundraising style on a radio talk show on Monday after a 9-month-old recording to his call to raise $40,000 for a Pentecostal organization went viral. Ushers closed the doors, Sapp is heard saying in the video, which was made at the conference of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. Let me just pause right there. So as I mentioned, I grew up in the Church of God in Christ. Now, the street that my church was on, there was two other churches in the Black community. There were two other churches in the Black community. Another one was a Black church on the same street, literally 2 doors apart, right? So there was a church, there was the church, there was the church's own building, which was a 2-family house. Next to it was another building, and on the other side was a church, and it was a Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. And we did not associate. And all the time I had been there, we had never done a cross church type of thing. Just we didn't even know that they existed. Crazy how the church world works, right? Crazy how, but we all going to the same place in heaven. Makes no sense to me. Pentecostal Assemblies of the World meeting in Baltimore in July 2024, where he saw $20 donations. Listen, I'm telling you right now, that's low. He only wanted $20. I don't know why this is a big deal. You only want $20? I've been in church services. They want $100,000. They want $100, $500. And I'm not talking about the preacher, right? He was hitting up the preachers for more. I'm talking about they want it sow a seed, give a donation, give a sacrificial offering, because the greater the sacrifice, the greater the blessing. $100, and won't God do it after that? See the doors of God open up for you. The bigger the seed you sow, the greater the harvest, the greater the return. All these different manipulation type of tactics. Crazy. What, you only want $20 in this economy? There's 1,000 of you tonight, and those that are watching, he continued, pointing at the camera. It's 1,000 watching online. This is a small seed. If I get 1,000 online to give this, if I get 1,000 in the sanctuary to give this, that's $40,000 tonight. Sapp, a Grammy nominated Stellar Awards winner for his song "Never Would Have Made It," appearing on the fellow gospel music stars Erica Campbell's Get Up Mornings radio talk show on Monday to counter the short clip that prompted discussions on giving culture on giving culture and the Black church and inspired TikTok trends. I guess they've been making fun of this brother. I haven't seen any of those. I'm not. Well, I had TikTok, but I never ever watch it. People said that I literally locked my people in the church until they gave me 40,000, and that's not true. Well, we just watched the clip. At least that edited clip didn't contain it. Anyway, he told Kim, it didn't happen in my church. Number one, we didn't lock the doors because you can't lock doors in convention center. That's number two. And the $40 that I was trying to raise, which I don't know if I raised it or not, went directly to the organization to take expenses of that conference. I told you, I'm going to tell you right now, it does cost to put on these conferences. It's not cheap. It's not cheap, right? You got to pay people, right? Transportation, fly people in, particularly the bigger the preacher, he's going to want you to pay for him. You got a big time preacher coming in, you got to pay for his travel, just like anything else. You got to pay for his travel, pay for his food, and give him an honorarium. I mean, this is standard. So the Pentecostal Assembly of the World Corporation issued a statement on Facebook on Saturday saying leaders of the denomination asked Sapp to seek a free will offering to help pay for expenses of his National Summer Convention and other PAW expenses. Months later, a short clip of our convention has now gone viral and unduly represented not only Bishop Marvin Sapp, but the PAW and churches worldwide. The denomination said closing the doors during giving is an internal security protocol that was unfortunately taken out of context. Now, this I don't believe. Now, I have been to churches in really, really shady areas that were hot, fans going, but when they took up the offering, they did close the doors because they didn't want the outside people to know that they were taking up offerings. So I'm not saying that isn't a thing. That is a thing. But it wasn't. I don't think that they were scared about in this or concerned given this context. He didn't want anybody leaving. Right? Don't leave. And listen, I have been to numerous churches, numerous occasions, numerous cities, because that's what we did in the church. We hop from church to church, right? Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, go to this church. We did it. And ushers don't let nobody out. Ushers block the doors. Not lock, but block the doors, stand in the way, close the doors. I can't remember if I've ever heard him say lock the doors, but no doors were locked and no one was held in the room against their will. We do not force or coerce anyone into supporting the operations of the organization, and we never will. We apologize to those who may be offended by the manner of receiving donations. In a Wednesday statement on Facebook, Sapp, the senior pastor of Chosen Vessel Cathedral in Fort Worth, Texas, said his instructions to ushers was not manipulation, but stewardship. Gotta love the spin. These guys are DJs, huh? To those unfamiliar with church context or who may not regularly attend worship service gatherings, this has been misinterpreted as a holding people hostage and was as well as offensive. He said that was never my intent. And so, yeah, let me finish this. In his conversation with Campbell, Sapp said he was receiving death threats. His church staff was frazzled, and his church children feared for his safety. Daddy, you're the last parent we got, said, whose wife Melinda died of cancer 2012, said his children told him. The reality is I'm a widower and I'm trying to calm down my church. I'm trying to calm down my children. I'm trying to calm down people that love me. Well, listen, I didn't know he was getting death threats. That's just, come on now. That's over the top. Daddy, you're the, let's see. On Thursday, the Shade Room, a celebrity news platform popular with Black audiences, posted on Instagram compilation of reactions of users shot by Sapp's clip. Sapp is clearly hustling his congregation for 40,000 and using God's name to do it. He's calling for the doors to be locked. That's not faith. That's a shakedown of false prophet. Read one X post, including Instagram publication that's been happening Yeah, it's been happening in Black church. I remember visiting pastors told that do the same thing when I was younger, attending church regularly. Listen, that's what I'm saying. This is not a big deal. What are we talking about here? The Reverend Cheryl Townsend Jilks. I looked it up, and that's how she pronounces the name. Jilks, a scholar who teaches at Harvard International Seminary for Religion and Peace, said, based on a description of the clip, it could distort the understanding of African American churches she studies. I've actually reached out to this lady, so hopefully she'll come on and talk to us about it. I recognize that the richness of this small apostolic denomination is so great and complex that it should not be dragged by one tiny social media clip, said Jokes Professor Emerita of African American Studies and Sociology at Colby College. That clip basically distorts the history and complexity of Pentecostal assemblies of the world and the people that need to let it rest. The clip became a popular comedic meme, including video POV. You finally tried out your friend's church on X, yada yada yada. At Freedom and Temple Missionary Church, South Carolina, Bishop Herbert J. Crump joked he wouldn't close the doors for offerings. I don't want to go viral like my friend. We're not going to close no doors, shut no doors. I ain't even talking about doors. Anything we're going to open doors, he said, prompting laughter at the church. The Dallas Project, Seventh-day Adventist congregation in Texas, Elder James Johnson mentioned Sapp's viral clip as he took the stage to bless offerings. This is part of the service where we ask ushers to close the doors. I'm just kidding, just kidding. We don't do that here. We don't do that here. God wants a cheerful giver. At the end of the radio interview, Sapp admitted finding some of his memes amusing, pronouncing hilarious photo of him on X decorated with Capital One logo and a tagline from the bank's credit cards, "What's in your wallet?" Okay, so that is that. So I actually reached out to Jokes there, and hopefully she will decide to come out and come on the show. And I texted a couple of my friends of mine who are very, very still adamant into the church, ardent church goers, I should say. And I invited one to come on. I don't know if he's watching right now, but I did invite him to come on. And he's a pastor of a church, and I don't know if he's going to come on or not. But let's see. I believe it's a big deal. I believe it's a big deal because of the style of presentation. That's why people are having an adverse reaction to being controlled and manipulated to give. Wisdom is needed and clearly lacking here. Now. There's not many of us watching here tonight, but and I'm being honest when I say this, is this not something that has happened in other churches? And I'm talking about Pentecostal churches in particular. Kojic church. I know it's happened in Kojic churches, in other apostolic or Pentecostal black churches, smaller denominations, etc. Is this not a thing? I can't believe that people are really taking this kind of reaction and didn't know that this type of stuff was not going on. I just can't believe that. Where in the Bible did Jesus require to pay for him to visit different cities? Um, he did take up offerings, right? I mean, there's a scripture in there that talks about what one of the apostles held the money, which would indicate that they took up offerings. You gotta eat. You gotta. I mean, uh, the issue isn't taking up the money. The issue is, yes, how much, what's going on with the money, and all that. So let's talk. So we talk about the convention type of stuff. Now, one of the biggest issues that I have with the church, one of the biggest issues that I have with the church is that, in particular, the Pentecostal churches have not been good stewards of the money. Let me say that real quick. Let me say that real emphatically. The black church has not been good stewards with the money. There's a saying, Chris Rock said something along these lines years ago when he said, after the death of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, everybody else has just been a bunch of substitute teachers. Where has the money gone? What are people doing with the money? Right? You got as has been said already in this comment section, you got people out there who are starving, people out there who can't buy food, people out there who's getting their lights shut off, people out, cost of eggs has gone up, all this different type of stuff, and people have not been, and the preachers have not been good stewards with the money. I recognize this may be hurtful, harmful. I don't want to be seeming like I'm blaspheming, talk about the man of God and talk about all this kind of stuff, but we got to be honest with it. There are people out here who are suffering, starving, and we have not been good stewards with the money. When I was going to church, now I was very active in my time going to church, very active. Uh, um, when I grew up, right, 16, 17, whatever, I became a deacon, then I became a minister. I was a youth leader. I had all these different positions, right? Um, one of the things I was teaching Sunday school for a long time, taught Sunday school for a number of years. I said that we need to change what we're talking about in Sunday school because what we're learning is Jewish history and Jewish myths. Right. This is what you if you learn about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and all these other different individuals from the Bible, they're you're learning their history. Whether you believe it's real or not, I'm not going down that path, but at least what you're learning is your history. We got black folks out here who know more about Jewish history, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all that type of stuff, and don't know, you know, and don't know anything about African American lineage, history, African people. You know, we know the 12 tribes of Israel. Don't know any of the tribes in Africa. I just think that this is a shame and a crime, particularly now. And I get it from a historical perspective. You know, coming over here, having religion forced down our throat, this particular style or type of religion being forced down our throat, and then we had to grow from there and become our own people. But now today, we ought to be, Sunday school ought to look vastly different from what it is. So what are we doing with the money? So I become this youth leader, and I said, okay, well, let's start. At the time I had started going to a community college. No money from the church to help me go to community college. It wasn't that expensive, but okay, but how come I can't get a scholarship, right? And the only scholarship that we had was one from the national organization. Now I'm giving an indictment of my particular church and my myopic view. I admit that, but I'm saying that here's some things that you ought to be looking for in your church. Does your church that you go to, that you pay your tithes, you give your money to, have a um, have a fund that can help to send your kids to college, or scholarship? Does your church have any type of elderly care system or home that you can put your church mothers in and the people that spent their entire lives in the church? Does your church have that? That's what I'm asking, right? Does your church have a daycare that you can educate your children into growing up and becoming successful adults? It's great that we have all it's great that we have a after school program, I'm not belittling that, but I'm talking about a dedicated daycare for your children, a dedicated K through 12 education system for your children. We're talking about what's going on in the Department of Education, what Donald Trump's trying to do, and all this kind of stuff. But what is your church doing in order to educate your children? To prepare them not only spiritually but prepare them for the real world, to give them a real good application education. Everybody's talking about what's going on in the schools and the change people, if you know what I'm talking about, right? Watch stories here, right? We all know what's going on with that. A lot of Christian folks don't have um a good sense about that. But what are you doing about that? Does your church have a scholarship program? Does your church have any of this type of stuff? And I said I wanted to start a scholarship program. So I went to the leadership of my church. So I want to start a scholarship program. Okay, well, you go ahead. It's almost verbatim what was told to me. You go ahead and start it, but we're not going to really help you. Okay, okay. What can we change the Sunday school curriculum? So because we need to teach some people. We need to know our history. We don't know our history, right? No, that's not what we do here, brother. These are real conversations that I had, trying to change the direction about where we wanted to go, and try to solidify our community. The reason that I think, and I stand by the fact that one of the reasons that our communities are so jacked up is because we have lost a traditional staple of of church. And I'm not, and I want to make this distinction between whether what you believe or not. I'm talking about the system and the organization. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the system and the organization, not so much what you believe. Because there's certain people who go to church, but may not necessarily believe everything that's taught as far as a doctrinal type of way. But at least you had community. At least you had some type of semblance of what was correct, what was right, what was wrong. You met people in church. You could get married in church, right? You met sister so and so or brother so and so, right? You had a sense of community. And this is because this has been lost because of situations like we just watched here. People are just totally turned off about what's going on in the church. Therefore, people don't watch anymore. They don't want to join anymore. They don't want to go to this anymore. This is what has turned people off. So I'm saying that the church, particularly the smaller Black churches, I don't know about the large Methodist organizations, or in particular Black churches, large Methodist or Baptist organizations, which probably house thousands or millions of people. Kojic at one time was the largest Black Pentecostal church. I think it still is. I think it's like the second largest Black denomination, period, right? But they don't have a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, or if they do, it's on a national level versus what goes on a smaller community based level. So that's so I'm saying we got to do more. You ought to expect more out of your church. You got to expect more out of your church. You got to expect more out of your church. Let's see. Okay. We also don't know how many offerings were collected before this final offering. The participants could have financially tapped out. Listen, I've been in church with the church service I was in at one time. We had 5 offerings. 5. That's what I remember. 5. Holding people hostage for money. I never knew church of black doors and using strong money like that. I knew they beg and manipulate, but that's too much. There's always the difference in what is said, what is heard. True. I just sent you a clip where James Johnson was poking fun at Sapp. It's a 1-minute video. Okay, I'll try to get that on here. I don't believe Jesus was paid. Okay. I don't. Oh, okay. Range Rover payments. Yes, that does happen in other churches. Witnessed it all my life in Baptist, Pentecost, etc. This isn't new, and has always been wrong to subjugate people. I grew up in church as well. Very good. Churches should have to birth to earth services for the parishioners. I absolutely agree with that. High vibe. You got people who are born in church, right? And you do a little christening service, and then what do? You send them off into the world, and then complain about the world that's miseducating them, right? They grow up, they don't know their history, culture, they don't know anything about the own history of the church, right? They don't know any of this stuff. And this lack of knowledge that we have is just baffling to me. They don't have any type. If you open up a daycare, right, you could employ some of the people in the church. From there, you can start a K through 12 education, teaching them not only, worldly principles about, math, reading, writing, and all that kind of stuff, but you can give them whatever education that you want them to have. And of course, I advocate for, spiritual, ministry, right? Teach your ministers how to be ministers, right? There was a minister. There was a big scandal, right? Because this minister was running his mouth. He didn't understand that whatever was told to him in a counseling session should not be repeated. How he didn't understand that, I don't know. But he didn't understand that this was an issue. Didn't understand it, right? So there was a big scandal about that. He just don't go to this pastor because he's going to run his mouth, right? You got to train these ministers about how you want them to act and do, right? And I just don't understand how this is not a thing going on in 2025. And listen, I brought this stuff up when I was in church 30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago I was bringing this stuff up. Like, how come we don't have this? Absolutely crazy. Jesus fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves. He prayed over the meal. To be fair, the level of organization could take a long time. Catholicism and Judaism have centuries more history than the Black church. But here's I agree with you. I agree with you to a certain level. We have more educated people now in Black folks now, right? We when we came out of slavery, the Black church. Here's a book that I'm reading. I don't know if you guys can see it. Mighty Like a River. Might be turned around here. Mighty Like a River, the Black church and social reform, right? When we came out of slavery, there was one of the largest educational campaigns by any group of people in history. And it was the education of formerly enslaved people. And where did they go to get this education? They went to the Black church. Before we had a mass allowance into colleges and universities, even though at the time we still had some Black colleges and universities. At the time, Booker T. Washington was trying to set up his academy and all that type of stuff. Where did we go to learn how to read? We went to the Black church. It was the Black church that really helped us to get to this place. So now we have more educated people. We got all these Black folks with masters and doctorates, and education degrees, far advanced than I, and all these black folks with MBAs. And as Amos Wilson said, we got all these people with MBAs and don't know how to, you can't, and raising them to be managers and to be business masters of business administrating white folks' businesses. This Amos Wilson said this, Dr. Amos Wilson. I just don't buy that we can't get it done. I just don't buy it. Now I get we were traumatized by burning down the churches and all that kind of stuff, but today, listen, we're not even talking like this anymore. We're not. He didn't raise $40,000, and I get it. It was important to pay for the convention. I get that, but we're not raising $40,000 to build a new community center. We're not building. We still haven't building funds, building churches, and the pastor need a new Rolls Royce. Literally. What are we doing? What are we doing? And I get that the Catholic and Judaism and all this kind of stuff has been around, and their critiques, or excuse me, their a lot of their money came from, we know where they got their money from subjugating us and all this different type of money and crusades and all that gave them the economic venture. But if tithes was really, even though it's not really biblical to give 10%, if we really did give 10% and we really put that into education of our children, education in the ministry, and then what I also said, as High Vibe said, from the birth to the earth, we don't have old folks home for our children. You imagine growing up in a church. You were born in the church. You were raised in the church. You went to all these different church services. You sung in the choir. You were the usher board. You did this for the church. You had a car wash. You cooked chicken for the church. You did all this kind of stuff. And now you're an 80-year-old lady and you got to go sit in somebody else's convalescent home. Nobody sees a problem with this. It's crazy. No one fears God. There's a church in every corner. Why? Easy money and tax exempt. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Amos Wilson. So this is my rant for the night here. I want to show one more thing here. Okay, let's see. Present. Where's our money going? Where is our money going? This is from my former organization. This is their website, churchofgodinChrist.org/education, certification for ministry, right? This is their education website, right? Education website. Over 51 certification websites across the world in 30 different departments. You can gain the skills needed to excel in your God-ordained ministry, right? So this is a national organization. Now I went to a church. Let me tell you a little bit about the church that I went to. So I went to a church up here, and I'm up here in Connecticut. So twice a year we would have a kind of a convocation at a large church here, and I guess for this state it was a pretty large organization. So we would have different districts, and each city was called a district. Now, a city, if you think about this, is kind of crazy. So one city, let's just say it was New Haven district, they would have maybe 4 or 5 different churches in that particular district. Some of them were all in the city of New Haven. Some of them maybe in Hamden or some surrounding town. It was always my philosophy that district ought to have a college. Maybe a college was too much, but forward thinking, you at least ought to have a daycare for everyone in the district to bring their kids to, including the community at large, a K-12 school for the district, and a scholarship, a minimum a scholarship, and then an old folks home, or at least an old folks home for the state. I just, for the state of Connecticut, putting out the money is there. The money is there, whether we get it through donations or we're setting up other corporate types of businesses. The money is there. That's not my specialty, but you can't tell me the money isn't there in order to do these types of things. Minimum a scholarship, minimum. You can't tell me you can't set up a daycare center either. I just don't believe that. You just can't you could set it up in the bottom of somebody's church, a daycare center for everybody in the community to go to educate your kids. All right. So this is a certification for ministry. This is how, and this is the education website. You can go to the home and all this kind of stuff, right? Educate. Can you guys see the top here? It says home, about us, educate. Can you guys see that here? Yeah, home, about us, educate, right? So this is the education one. Implementing ways for the Mason collegiate system. Where is this at? I don't know. Disappeared on me. I was doing something here. So the CH Mason collegiate system and program. SPAR, students primed for academic rigor and quest. CH Mason jurisdictional institutes. All Saints Bible College. And all that, right? So there, you can see the little changes to the hand here. So I clicked on the All Saints Bible College, and here's what pops up. The 7, Ultimate Web Design and Online Builder for WordPress. So the link doesn't even work. This is the largest Pentecostal, if I think second largest Black denomination, and the link to the All Saints Bible College doesn't work. Now, and back when I was in my 20s, back in my day, when I was a young buck, we had gone to Chicago because there was a youth conference for the whole country, right? Youth conference in Chicago. We drove there from Connecticut to Chicago. Man, it was a long drive. And they were taking up offerings to build All Saints College. Taking up offerings to do it. And it's still not up and running, and the website's still not doing it 20 years later. Not only that one, but the CH jurisdictional institutes, that one doesn't work either. Let's see if the SPAR one works. Nope, that one doesn't work either. It's the same website, the ultimate website. None of them work. So where's the money going? Where's the money going? So people want to criticize the church and all this kind of stuff, and where the money's going, and Marvin Sapp holding people hostage and all this kind of stuff. But we're our own worst enemies. We're not educating our people. We don't know the history of our people. We don't have any semblance or connection to Africa. We don't have any connection or semblance. There is no nexus. There is no nexus between the Black church and its historical past. Not to any great degree, right? There's certainly some masters holders who understand this legacy, right? There's certain people like myself who are reading this type of material, trying to figure out what's going on, because I'm trying to figure out what happened. How do we go from the educational prowess that we had of coming out of slavery and mass education campaign to this craziness that we got going on, where even Felicia Rashad, who I believe is Dominican, has said, is now making statements about what's going, women not wearing enough clothes. How do we get here? We got here because we don't have the collective mindset. We've lost our institution. We've lost our culturally based significance, as I've talked about before in other podcasts. If you have not watched the episode, or excuse me, Barbara Sizemore, her clip of Black People Still Don't Get It, you need to watch that. We don't get it. And we got preachers that are taking collections for offerings, not putting it back into the church. And by the church, I mean the people. You're not investing in your people. And then we wonder why our neighborhoods are in a mess, and why women are running around, why we still got men who don't want to get married. We can't figure it out. Well, we've lost our institution, and we've lost our way. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the people who should know better don't. And you listen to Marvin Sapp. You listen to him. You heard the clip. He's still giving bad, wrong information and talking about that grain and sheep were currency. I've never been to seminary. I know that's not the case. I'm sure most of you all know that's not the case. Why is this man still saying that? we definitely had the business acumen to operate at a higher level. However, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The church organizational structure matters. So in my conversations with my good friends who was pastors, I talked to two of them. They both agree that this is a problem. They both agree that this is a problem. The church organization, the forward-thinking progress of the church has not been there. We have not institutionally, organizationally pushed for the advancement of African American people. That's why you got men leaving the church. That's why you got women running around the church not married. He's still arguing about if women can preach or not. That's still an argument? God hasn't spoken, give you a direction about this? Crazy. If they can't even keep a website online, if Black Dev, if they can't even keep a website online, that's pathetic. I'm telling you, I just pulled it up. You can go there for yourself and look. And listen, let me say, some churches are actually doing some stuff. There's some churches that have scholarships. They have after school programs. They got stuff going. Some churches absolutely have it. I assume some denominations. I don't know about all denominations. I don't know about all. I'm just critiquing the one I grew up in that I'm most familiar with, and this one here, the PAW. But I'm saying to anyone who watches this, these are things you ought to be expecting and looking for in a church. Okay, I'm going to bring my church. I'm going to bring my kids to this church. Are you going to provide a daycare for my kids? Are you going to provide something K through 12 education, even if it's an after school program, tutoring program, so we can get these Black boys to read? Are you going to provide any of that? After I brought my kids here for 10 years and it's time for them to go to college, can you give them at least some money to go to college after all the tithes and offerings that I've dropped in here? Even if I got to do something to help out, we want to have chicken dinners, we want to have car washes, we want to sell candy, we all the stuff we want to do. I'm thinking really, really low, right? Teach our kids investment. What are you going to do to help my kids go to college? This is the things you ought to be looking for to the church goers and viewers. There was everybody knows I was a police officer. I remember one time I was still going to church at the time. Very, very active. And I'd gone to this lady's house and I knew that she reminded me so much of my life. She had two sons and she was having a mental break. She was having a nervous breakdown. So I think one of her kids called us and, we got there, we tried to, get her the emotional, psychological help or sent her to the hospital that she needed. Reminded me of my life. She just didn't have the services she didn't have the services. She's dealing with two kids and, dealing with being laid off and where her living situations. We don't have none of that on a mass scale. Shameful. And these guys sit up there in their fancy suits that were European suits. Crazy. So if you're going to these churches, you got to demand, just like we got to demand more taxpayers from our people, just like from our representatives from the local, the state, and federal, just like taxpayers. These people are voting, doing stuff that nobody agrees with. They're just doing it. And we don't vote. The problem is, okay, we give them 2 years, 4 years, or then we'll vote from. You vote them back in again. But the guilt trips. You talk about the guilt trips, giving offerings and stuff. The guilt trips also about staying in the church. God don't want you church hopping. Stay in this one church. You can't leave. You might not be saying closed door, but that's more manipulation tactics. God don't want you church hopping. This is the church you was born in. You need to stay here. Let's see. To be fair, that level of organization. Okay, let's see. Let me get through some of these comments here. Thank y'all for watching me rant here for a little bit. Indeed, Dr. L, they are turning people off with their greed and resistance to change and new ideas. Listen, that really, really, I was almost done with the church when they told me I couldn't start up when they told me I could start a scholarship, but they weren't going to help me. And then when I wanted to teach something different than the stuff that we were doing in Sunday school, because I started to say this before, because the Jewish people, that's what they teach. They teach their history, their culture, and their philosophy is that what happened during the Holocaust is never going to happen again. We had a Holocaust too, in case anybody doesn't know that. We had one too. We had to take the same philosophy, figure out what happened and why. It's our lack of cohesion, lack of parenting skills, lack of marriage rates, and everything else. That George Fraser and all these Claude Anderson and all these other people all talk about finances, economics. Dr. Barbara Sizemore talks about this, right? She's with the ancestors now, but she talked about it. Don't know these people. Anybody out there? Crazy. Not investing people is critical. The desire to do more isn't there because we already know the funds are accessible. Of course, yeah, the funds are there. We got money for Birkin bags and traveling and vacations. You got money to give $10 to the church that's actually building something. That's actually building something. What Umar Johnson's trying to do, that system of schooling is phenomenal. Unfortunately, he's demonstrating he's not the right person to do it. But every church should have that. Every church should have that. Particularly if you have an issue with the education system that your children are going to. You look at the reading scores, they're in the toilet. Why would you continue to send your kids to these schools? It has to be the corruption, because I'm sure a lot of people have pointed it out through the years, but they're not doing anything about it, Black Dev. They're not doing anything about it. They're still going to the same church, still giving the same. That's why people don't change. Here's what we want. We want different Sunday school lessons. We want Black history. We want economics education. We want parenting classes. We want marriage classes. They were more in touch with people when they lived and worked with their members at real jobs. I don't like this tithes, pays, and salary ministry and bishops. First of all, tithes is not biblical. Paying money, giving 10% of your offer of your paycheck is not biblical. No, it's not biblical. If you're doing that, you really shouldn't be. But whatever, I can definitely prove it to you. If a pastor is trying to sell you a ticket to heaven, then maybe in a church. Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's my rant for today. I was going to try to play the interview that Marvin Sapp did with Ricky Smiley, but I would highly suggest you all go over there because I don't want any strikes, and they're always trying to demonetize my videos and all this kind of stuff. So, so that's my thought. Listen, the taxing of people by Marvin Sapp. We don't know how many offerings they given. Yeah, I get it. Right. I was in a church service one time. They had two different speakers. This was four services. Four. They had a free will offering, the sacrificial offering. Then they had two preachers to preach. One service, two preachers. And then they wanted to give an offering each time to each preacher. Four different services. So listen, this is what we're dealing with, and we continue to go for it. We continue to go for the okie doke. We continue to do that. This is the problem. You got to stop. You got to demand more from your leaders politically. Oh wait, Yoli sent me something. Let me put on here what Yoli sent me. Politically, we gotta demand more from our politicians and from our church leaders. You got to demand more. You got to demand more. Let me try to pull up just what Yoli sent me here. All right. Miss Townsend text me back or email me back. So I'm going to set up something. Hopefully we can get to talk. All right, let's see. See if I can play this. Is this on Facebook? Because I took my Facebook down here. Copy link address. I'm going to put it in the chat. I don't have Facebook anymore. I'm trying to chill out with that. So this is on Facebook. Y'all can check it out. So go over there and check that out. I apologize, Yoli. I deactivated my Facebook. I'm really trying to detox from social media. Sometimes I have to watch a video here and there, but it's kind of ironic, right? Trying to detox from social media. I got a Facebook. All right. So that's it. So listen. This is bad. Actually, let me if anybody wants to come up, I said I'll invite people to come up. This is my rant here. I'll give you guys like a couple minutes here. Anybody wants to talk about this? I see you guys in the comment section. And where we at with the likes? Hit the like button. So if you guys got any stories about crazy offerings or church corruption and all that kind of stuff, I would appreciate it. But so it's really bad. It's really bad. And again, I wouldn't have a problem with giving. Same thing I have politically, right? It's not the taxes. It's what the money's being used for. Nobody wants another war. Nobody wants another war. What are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, I heard somebody talking about. Y'all hit the like button at 11 likes. I heard somebody talking about the issue that's going on with Germany. This is kind of off topic here. And there's this talk about Germany because of the situation that's going on with Russia, rearming itself and remilitarizing. Meanwhile, the money that they have been getting, they've been using it for keeping the cost of education down, giving social networking type of things, social institutions, healthcare, education, fixing up parks. Now, if they remilitarize, they got to pay all those people, and next thing you know, the quality of everything else is going down. The quality. Same thing that goes on in church. You're giving preachers money, and what are they doing with the money? Buying suits, buying cars, taking expensive trips to these types of conventions. We used to have. There was this thing, because I told you about our big congregation was called Memphis. We used to call it Memphis. It was a Church of God in Christ national. It was some fancy name, national conference or whatever it was called. We used to just call it Memphis for sure. We're going to Memphis. There were churches used to have Memphis drives. The Memphis Drive was making sure that you give money to the pastor. So when the pastor goes to Memphis, he has money to ball out. He can give these $1,000 offerings. He can eat with the other bishops in the fancy restaurants. What? Listen, we used to go. We're going this Memphis Drive over this church. We're going to Memphis Drive over that church. What? Right? And then we used to have pastor anniversaries, week long events. Right? Monday night, it's the ushers' night. Tuesday night, it's the deacons. Wednesdays, the brothers, and all this type of stuff. Right? It's the little kids department is all giving money to the pastor. What's he doing with the money? Is he building a school? Is he giving a hospital? Is he establishing a ministry, so education for his up and coming ministers? Is he giving the money to starving kids in Africa? What is he doing with the money? Only thing I have is only thing I have is nobody can call in. I only have the StreamYard in the StreamYard. So if you can get to that, yeah, you can. What I put up there in StreamYard, you can. The line is open there, D Will. So. Let me switch account. Why does it do this? It's over for now, but I'm going back. I had some computer problems. my computer crashed, and so I was supposed to go to another spot, and that other spot that I was going to go to wanted me to detour New York City. So I was all the way down in the Caribbean, had to, to fly, had to fly back to New York City, and then fly back somewhere else. And I had 2 layovers to go to some other Caribbean island. So I don't know if I did something wrong when I'm planning. So I said, if I'm back in New York, I might as well just go home, swap out computers, and then so that's why I'm back. But the end of the month, I'm gonna go back. So I won't be here very long. So you'll see me getting chased around by spiders and stuff in a little bit. Okay. Let me go to my channel here. Right on. New floor chimes can call them craziness. I attended an AME church in New York, and they did have a multitude of services for community, including many of those that you mentioned. For the community, or did they have it for the community, or did they have it for the people? In order to advance the community or for themselves. That's the question that I have. Yeah, 14 likes, y'all. Come on now, hit the like button. That's how we get more interaction, more people. Please tell us about your vacation. Let's see, good podcast. Thank you so much. Let's see. So my vacation, it's really not really wasn't much of a vacation. He's paying for his 3,000 square foot house, 45 miles away, from the church, and his $65,000 luxury cars, etc. Are luxury cars $65,000 still? I mean, when I was looking at one, it was like 75. It was a Kia Telluride or whatever that is. $75,000. Don't bring back any spiders. Listen, you know how hard I was shaking my my backpack to make sure that I didn't bring back any critters. That thing absolutely freaked me out. So yeah, let's see. I hope you to make it to Antigua soon. Listen, that's on my list there. So my vacation, it was. I'm really looking for a place to live, to really move to and retire to. So I'm going through a lot with that and trying to hook up with some real estate agents and just kind of see the scope of and all that. That's really what I'm looking for. So it really wasn't much to me just relaxing on the vacation. I still got to bring my laptop, still got to correct papers. So I still got to do all that to make some extra money. So that's just what I'm dealing with. So that's pretty much it. So at the end of the month after Easter, prices will drop on the plane ticket. So I'll be back. So I'll be back traveling. So I swapped out my computer, my laptop. So that's what I'm doing. So So I pinned a message here. So listen, we're going to call it for tonight if nobody wants to come up and have a conversation. So I ranted about church and all this kind of stuff and the money and ties. It's not the money for me. It's just what you're doing with it. And we're still fighting the same things, even though the church attendance is dwindling and less people are claiming to be Christians or less people are believing in God and all that kind of stuff. The church isn't adjusting. The church is not adjusting. So that's what I have a problem with. And I hope that people would watch this and say and demand, how come, and ask themselves a question: how come my church doesn't have any mental health services? How come my church doesn't have domestic violence help services? How come my church doesn't have marital counseling services? How come my church doesn't have a K through 12 education or after school program or computer giveaway or computer literacy or how to balance your checkbook or how to invest in stocks and bonds? How come my church doesn't do any of these types of things? That's what I want. That's what I want the biggest takeaway to be from this conversation tonight is if you go to church, I'm not encouraging you to go, and I'm not encouraging you to stop. I'm encouraging you to ask the question, what are you doing? What are you doing? And why are you doing it? That's all. Go to church, have a good time, run around, blow big bubbles and fall off a dead, roll underneath the benches, run around the church, do what you got to do. But when the church service is over and you've gotten your dopamine and hit and every other neurochemical hit that's going on in the church, when you leave the church, are they giving your kids any scholarship? Do they have any services, as High Vibe said, from the birth to the earth? from the womb to the tomb? Do they have anything to help you in your everyday life? As one sister that I appreciated, who was my mentor, used to say, the organ ain't there, right? Because we had the church, the organ was going, we dancing around and shouting and stuff, right? The organ's not there in your job when your boss is making you mad. There's no organ there, right? So you got to figure out how to live this life here, and we got to figure this out. And the only thing it seems to be that we figured out is the hustle. So yeah, that's on my list there to visit. Is Colombia, a lot of different places, right? Antigua. I heard a lot about Antigua. Antigua's definitely on my list there because I've heard the climate there is great. It never goes below 50, it never goes above 80. So I like it nice. I don't like to be super hot on 90s all the time. I don't like that. I don't like that. So that climate sounds to be great to me. So I'm definitely looking to Antigua to visit. Panama, a lot of different places. So leadership style limits diverse programs, ego and one person centered churches. True. My church caters for its members' spiritual, emotional, and physical needs of its members. Okay, well, tell us about that if you could. Okay, we get to spiritual. What do you mean by emotional and physical needs? And I'm not talking about. When I talk about physical needs, I'm not talking about giving people money or paying somebody's bills. That is not what we need. There's an old saying that I don't know where, I don't even think anybody knows where it comes from anymore. The saying is that if you give a man a fish, they'll eat for a day, but if you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for life. Our church needs to create entrepreneurs, and we need to break through the idea that we can't work together. That's one of the biggest things that I think that we are lacking in cohesion with a systematic organization. This is something that the church, if we all went to church, not all, but if we had massive amounts of people going to church, they would learn to, and the preacher could really get them to say, listen, we have this idea that we need your help to work with. We need to work together in order to formulate this. I talked about the Jewish persons who collectively say, never again. They may disagree about what's going on in their homeland in Israel. They may disagree about that. They may disagree about other things, right? There's different Jewish sects, and I understand all that. But one thing they collectively say is, that, man, we are Jewish first, and we're not going to let anything happen to us. We got to make sure that we are safe and comfortable, and we need to have that same idea. It seems as if after 1968, after the death of MLK, that we just forgot all that. We just forgot all that. I mean, we had the Black Panthers for a little bit, but once they were stamped out, collectively, I mean, I think we ought to look at the Nation of Islam and see what they're doing to educate their people, and they got their own farms and whatever they're doing. That needs to be imitated and emulated. It needs to be imitated and emulated. Right, it's the distrust that keeps us from growing. Yeah, we don't trust each other. And I think this could be stamped out through church. You know, and part of this high vibe is the preachers. How can I trust the person who's sitting next to me in the pew or who doesn't go to church if I can't even trust a preacher who's telling me to trust somebody else because he's picking my pocket? I can't trust that man. I can't trust that sister over there to go into a corporation or build a corporation or build a business or help me start a school or make sure, and I'm going to educate the people and you be over the finances. How can I trust you to be upfront and honest when the preacher who's telling me to trust you is not upfront and honest himself? Crazy. I get the impression that people that go to church because it's a good look. Responsibility is a different subject. I think they go for the spiritual thing and for the dopamine hit and for the psychological high. That's why I think that people go to church. That's why I think that people go to church. They're looking for answers to serious problems, psychological problems, drug addictions. They want to get off. They want to get help. They want to quote unquote self-medicate off of these other nefarious, destructive habits, start their life over. They maybe have a couple of kids out of wedlock, and maybe they've been to prison or whatever, right? How many conversions happen behind bars, right? So they get that, so they start a new life, but they don't give them any substance. You got to give these people substance. I'm looking for substance. The promise of heaven. I've been hard pressed to find a teaching ministry, but they don't teach you. I mean, if you go to a church like this, right, and they're still teaching nonsense, I could go off about. I could really, as mentioned, I grew up in church. I had a rough time. I went through a lot. I went through a lot of books. I went through a lot of searching and researching, reading. That stuff that they're teaching. That stuff that they're teaching. The preachers know they know it's not true. If they've been to seminary, if your preacher has been to seminary, if you if your pastor has been to seminary, they know the stuff that they're saying is nonsense. They know it. They know it. They know it's nonsense. I don't know if Sapp has been to seminary, but when they say that kind of stuff, grain was currency. They know it's not true. Yeah, all that going to getting answers for sure. Church is a weekly pep rally well said. A weekly pep rally to get folks through the week. If church really wanted to heal people, they would marry psychology with scripture. I'm convinced a lot. I'm convinced. I think that's right. I think it's a form of a drug addiction. It's a form of it, right? You're getting these dopamine highs and all that kind of stuff. Pep rally, I like that. But if they really got you off of the stuff, you wouldn't go back because you'd be healed and whole. You might go for maintenance, but they couldn't extract the money from you. Certainly couldn't extract it. Just like the government has a vested interest in keeping people ignorant. It's true. They have a vested interest in keeping people ignorant and not knowing everything that they are doing. The church has the same thing. It's really sad. It's really sad. I experienced personal growth when I went, but I saw things that I didn't agree with. I think that it can be good. I think there's some things that go along with it, right? You can learn a lot from particularly from the teachings of Jesus, right? I mean, there's the book of Proverbs is probably it has always been my favorite book. There's just some smart sayings in there, and yes, you can experience some spiritual or physical or spiritual emotional growth, right? You can really become a better person. You can put things in perspective. You can look at the different stories that are in the Bible and say, man, this is really resonates with me, and let me try to move in this direction. But as High Vibe said, you got to try to eventually that becomes a baseline. You got to marry that with psychology. You got to marry that with sociology. You got to marry that with your training, your whether a lawyer or whatever you do, you got to marry that with something else. You got to continue to grow as a person. And that's just man, that's just not happening. That's just not happening. Yeah. Psalms is powerful. Yeah. Proverbs was always it for me. So all right. So I'm gonna let y'all go. It's been an hour and 24 minutes. I thank y'all for hanging out. Please hit the like button. If you watch this in the future, hit the like button. I had said before I wanted to do a thing about ties, but I don't know if I want to do that, man. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. Again, I'm not trying to bash organized religion or anything like that. I'm not trying to do that at all. I just want to say that what he did, Marvin Sapp did, was not unusual. But I think that it was, everything's a drama now, right? Everything's drama. Everything's for clicks and likes, and everything's a catastrophe. And so, listen, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know. So Yoli put something here. Go over to Facebook if you still have that. Click on that, watch it, check it out. The comedy and all that. I mean, it makes for good comedy and all that, but all right, y'all. I'll see y'all in the future. I got a couple of videos dropping. I think they're pretty good because I think all my videos are good. Got a couple other videos dropping. Y'all take care of yourselves. Much love and peace. Buy me some lunch if you feel so inclined. I don't know where HJ is. I don't know. Layered subject. Good night, Rhonda. High vibe. Y'all take it easy. Have a good night. Take care.